A technique used by ginger farmers in Kerala, India, produces rhizomes that are 3 times larger than those typically grown according to Western gardening advice. It takes 30 seconds to perform. It requires no special tools, no fertilizers, no complicated systems. Yet almost no English-language gardening book mentions it. Commercial ginger operations in Jamaica, Thailand, and China have used this method for centuries to maximize yields. Small-scale farmers pass it down from one generation to the next. However, when ginger cultivation spread to Western home gardens, this critical step was overlooked. Not because it doesn't work, because it goes against everything modern gardening teaches about harvesting. This technique forces the plant to do something it would never do in nature: produce 2, 3, or sometimes 4 times more rhizomes than it genetically wants to. And once you understand why it works, you'll never grow ginger the same way again. Welcome to the method they forgot to translate. The problem with Western ginger growing. Go to any gardening website. Buy any book on growing ginger. They all say the same thing. Plant your ginger rhizome in spring. Water consistently. Provide partial shade. Wait 8 to 10 months. Harvest once. Get your ginger. That's it. One planting, one harvest, one small cluster of rhizomes that's maybe twice the size of what you planted. Then they tell you to save a piece to replant next year and start over. This is how you grow ginger if your goal is consistency, simplicity, and mediocre results. This is not how you grow ginger if you want huge rhizomes that fill a basket. Because traditional ginger farmers in Asia don't wait 10 months to harvest. They don't plant once and leave it alone. And they don't treat the ginger plant like a passive vegetable that just grows on its own. They harvest while it's growing, deliberately, strategically, in a way that shocks the plant into emergency production mode. This is the technique Western gardening forgot. The technique: continuous selective harvesting. Here's what traditional farmers discovered thousands of years ago. If you partially harvest a ginger plant while it's actively growing, removing outer rhizomes, but leaving the central mother rhizome intact, the plant panics. From the plant's perspective, something just stole part of its energy storage. It needs to replace what was lost. So it triggers a stress response: rapid rhizome multiplication. The technical term is compensatory growth. When you remove apical dominance by harvesting outer fingers, you force dormant buds on the remaining rhizome to activate. Each bud becomes a new growing point. Each ever-increasing point becomes a new rhizome finger. One harvest triggers the growth of 2 or 3 new rhizomes. Harvest again a month later, and those 2 or 3 become 6 to 9. By the end of the season, your original single rhizome has branched into a massive cluster that weighs 5 times what you planted. This is not a theory. This is how commercial ginger is cultivated on a large scale in India, China, and Southeast Asia. However, here's why Western gardening books often overlook it. Why it was left out. When ginger cultivation was introduced to Western home gardening in the 1980s and 90s, it came through 2 channels: academic agricultural research and commercial nursery catalogs. Academic research focused on commercial monoculture, single planting, single harvest systems that maximize efficiency for mechanized farming. Continuous selective harvesting doesn't scale to industrial operations. You can't send workers into fields every month to hand harvest portions of plants. So the research ignored it. Nursery catalogs wanted to sell you ginger rhizomes every year. If they taught you the continuous harvest method, you'd never need to buy seed ginger again. One piece, properly managed, would multiply indefinitely. That isn't good for annual sales. So the books and websites simplified the process. Plant once, harvest once, buy more next year. Easy to explain, easy to sell, and completely wrong for maximizing production. Meanwhile, in Kerala, farmers were pulling 15 to 20 kilograms per square meter using continuous harvest. Western home gardeners, following the wait 10 months advice, were getting 2 to 3 kilograms from the same space. The knowledge gap wasn't about climate or soil. It was about what happens between planting and final harvest. The science behind it. Here's what happens inside the plant when you perform continuous selective harvesting. Step 1. Apical dominance removal. Ginger grows from buds along the rhizome. Normally, the largest, most established section, the mother rhizome, suppresses bud growth on smaller sections through hormonal signaling. This is apical dominance. One leader prevents others from competing. When you harvest outer fingers but leave the mother, you remove those suppressed sections. The mother rhizome is now alone. Without competition, it activates dormant buds all along its length. Step 2. Resource reallocation. The plant was storing energy in those harvested fingers. Now that energy redirects to the remaining rhizome. Instead of maintaining what exists, the plant switches to emergency growth mode, rapidly creating new storage organs. Step 3. Multiplication cascade. Each activated bud becomes a new rhizome finger. Within 30 to 45 days, those fingers are large enough to harvest partially again. Each harvest triggers another round of bud activation. The plant continually tries to replenish what you take. By the 5th or 6th month, the original single rhizome has developed into a sprawling underground network with 15 to 25 distinct fingers, all of which are actively growing and storing energy. This is how a 100-gram seed rhizome becomes a 2-kilogram harvest. But there are rules. Break them, and you kill the plant. The rules for continuous harvest. Rule 1. Never harvest before 5 months. The plant needs time to establish a strong mother rhizome and root system. Harvest too early, and you set it back instead of triggering multiplication. Wait until the plant has at least 8 to 10 mature stems before you touch it. Rule 2. Only harvest outer fingers. The mother rhizome, the original central piece you planted, must remain untouched until final harvest. It's the engine. Remove it, and the plant dies. Gently dig around the edges. Feel for the outer fingers that have branched away from the center. Snap or cut those off. Leave everything attached to the mother. Rule 3. Harvest no more than 1/3 at a time. Take too much, and the plant can't recover. A 1/3 removal is enough to trigger a stress response without causing fatal damage. Wait 4 to 6 weeks between harvests to allow regrowth. Rule 4. Harvest during active growth. The technique only works when the plant is actively photosynthesizing and storing energy. This means harvesting between months 5 and 9, which is typically a 10-month growing season. Never harvest after foliage starts yellowing. That's when the plant is going dormant, and it won't respond with new growth. Rule 5. Maintain perfect conditions. Continuous harvesting is stressful. The plant needs optimal conditions to handle it. Rich, loose soil with high organic matter, consistent moisture, never dry, never waterlogged. Partial shade, morning sun, afternoon shade. Weekly feeding with balanced organic fertilizer during active growth. Compromise on any of these, and the technique backfires. The step-by-step method. Months 1 to 5. Establishment phase. Plant your seed rhizome in spring. Use high-quality ginger with multiple bud eyes. Plant 2 inches deep in loose, compost-rich soil. Water consistently. Provide partial shade. Feed monthly with compost tea or balanced organic fertilizer. Wait. Let the plant build a strong foundation. You'll know it's ready when you see 8 or more stems, and the foliage is lush and healthy. Month 5 to 6. First selective harvest. Gently dig around the outer edges of the root zone. Don't lift the plant. Just expose the rhizomes enough to see what's developed. You're looking for fingers that have branched away from the central mother. They'll be lighter colored, smaller, but fully formed. Snap off 2 to 3 outer fingers. The total harvest should be about 30% of the visible rhizome mass. Carefully cover everything back up, water thoroughly, feed with diluted liquid fertilizer. Month 7, second harvest. Repeat the process. By now, the plant should have produced several new fingers where you harvested before. Take another 30% of visible growth, always leaving the mother untouched. Month 8, third harvest. Optional. If the plant is still vigorous with green foliage, you can perform one more selective harvest. This is where yields explode. The third harvest often produces more than the first two combined. Month 9 to 10, final harvest. When foliage yellows and dies back, stop selective harvesting. Let the plant complete its natural cycle. After the first frost, or when foliage is 80% dead in tropical climates, harvest everything, including the mother rhizome. What you'll find underground will look nothing like what you planted. Instead of a simple cluster, you'll have a sprawling, multi-branched rhizome system weighing 1 to 3 kilograms from a single 100-gram start. What you'll actually get. Let me give you real numbers from side-by-side comparisons. Standard, weight, and harvest. Method. Starting rhizome, 100 grams. Final harvest, 10 months, 600 grams. Multiplication factor, 6x. Continuous selective harvest. Method. Starting rhizome, 100 grams. Selective harvests, months 5, 7, 8, 500 grams total. Final harvest, month 10, 800, 1200 grams. Total yield, 1700 grams. Multiplication factor, 11 to 17x. The difference isn't marginal, it's transformative. And the quality? The continuously harvested ginger is more fibrous in the early harvests, which is perfect for cooking, while the final harvest produces the plump, tender rhizomes you'd buy at premium prices. Why doesn't everyone do this? Because it requires attention. You can't plant ginger and forget about it. You need to check the plant monthly, perform timed harvests, maintain optimal conditions, and be willing to get your hands dirty multiple times during the season. The standard method is easier. Plant, wait, harvest. One interaction. But easy doesn't produce 2-kilogram harvests from 100-gram starts. Traditional farmers in Kerala don't do this because they read about it in a book. They do it because when you're feeding a family from a small plot, you need every gram. Efficiency isn't optional, it's survival. Western home gardeners have the luxury of mediocre yields. We can just buy more ginger at the store, so the simplified method persists. But if you want results that match what professional farmers achieve, you have to farm like them. And that means treating ginger not as a passive plant, but as a dynamic system you actively manage throughout the season. Common mistakes that kill the technique. Mistake. 1. Harvesting too early. Patience is non-negotiable. Month 5 at the earliest. Most plants need until month 6. Harvest at month 3 or 4, and you'll just set the plant back. Mistake 2. Taking the mother rhizome. If you accidentally harvest the central piece, the plant dies. Always leave the largest, most established rhizome untouched. Mistake 3. Overwatering after harvest. Freshly harvested roots are wound sites. Overwatering immediately after harvest can introduce rot. Water is normally moist, but not saturated. Mistake 4. Harvesting in poor conditions. If your plant is struggling with yellowing leaves, slow growth, or pest damage, don't stress it further. Continuous harvesting only works on healthy, vigorous plants. Fix the growing conditions first, then harvest. Mistake 5. Forgetting to feed. The plant is producing double or triple the normal biomass. It needs fuel. Feed every 2 weeks. during active growth with compost tea, worm castings, or balanced organic fertilizer. Skip this, and yields collapse. The bigger picture. This isn't just about ginger. This is about the gap between traditional agricultural knowledge and modern home gardening advice. When cultivation techniques migrate across cultures, they're simplified. The complexity gets stripped away. What remains is often the least effective version of the practice, but the easiest to explain. Continuous selective harvesting works for turmeric. It works for potatoes. It works for Jerusalem artichokes. Any plant that stores energy in underground organs can be manipulated this way. However, you won't find it in most English-language gardening books, as it requires an understanding of plant physiology. It requires hands-on management. It requires thinking of plants as dynamic systems, not passive decorations. Traditional farmers never had the luxury of passive gardening. They needed maximum output from minimum space. So they developed techniques that pushed plants to their biological limits. That knowledge exists. It's been proven for centuries. However, it exists in languages that most Western gardeners don't speak, in cultures that most gardening books don't reference, and in farming systems that most agricultural research ignores, until someone translates it. What you do now. If you're growing ginger this season, you have a choice. Follow the standard advice. Plant once, wait 10 months, harvest once. Get your small cluster of rhizomes and wonder why yours don't look like the commercial ginger at the store. Or try the technique that traditional farmers have used for generations. Manage your plant actively. Harvest strategically. Watch it respond by producing 2, 3, or 4 times what it would have grown on its own. The process is simple. The timing is critical. The results are undeniable. Month 5, first selective harvest. Month 7, second harvest. Month 8, optional third harvest. Month 10, final harvest. 4 touches over 5 months. That's the difference between 400 grams and 1,500 grams. The knowledge was never lost. It was just never translated. Until now. If this changed how you think about growing ginger, subscribe to Garden With You and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves traditional knowledge that modern gardening forgot.